I want to get back to LeBron James. We talked about it with Woj at the top of the show. He's been upgraded from out to questionable for tonight against the Kings. LeBron has been out since March 20th, guys, with that high ankle sprain. It's the longest absence of his career. So, George, what changes for the Lakers with LeBron back in the lineup? Even when he's just working his way back in, what can he pick up and help them?
Again, if we were playing something, nothing, or everything, this would be everything,
This is
Rachel.
everything.
Okay? Look, they've been the second worst offensive rating team in the NBA in his absence, okay? In 20 or 21 games, whatever it's been, they've been really bad on offense, okay? Even with Anthony Davis back, they've been a little better, but not as good as LeBron James. He is the engine here, certainly. So right there, that fixes a lot of problems. And then, look, defensively, they've been good, but they have slipped a little bit. They went from being the best defense in the NBA to being the second best defense in the NBA to fourth. So there's been some slippage, and with LeBron back in the lineup and obviously AD, they could go back to being the top defense in the NBA as well.
Well, and what this affords, George, and you know this as well, Rachel, is that what the Nets are lacking right now, in some cases, is just definition of what is going to happen. There is so much unknown. And so when you have Andre Drummond having signed with the Lakers while LeBron James was not playing, you were able to see him and Anthony Davis a little bit, but then you add LeBron into the mix, and it's a question of, okay, how is that going to work exactly? Anthony Davis has talked about the fact that he enjoys playing the four. So when LeBron comes back, what shifts there? Is it still going to be Drummond playing the five? I know Anthony Davis has talked about how he envisions it being a little bit like DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, Lob City Clippers. Those roles get to be solidified. They get to be refined. Even if LeBron James is on some sort of minutes restriction, all of those things they get to see, they get to work through, even with a couple of games back. And that's an advantage over a team that a lot of people think could be pushing them, and that is the Nets.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just lets people play their regular roles, right? Andre Drummond's role on this team is going to be different if LeBron James and Anthony Davis are in the lineup, and that's what they intend to have during the playoffs. So it will let him finally, for the first time since he's been here in Los Angeles, know what that role is and work through it. George, we did see AD and AD, as we've been calling them here, kind of have a lot of conversations over the first few games, who does what. We know that AD, of course, prefers to play the four so he doesn't get beat up all season, but that Frank is going to slip him into that five spot when he needs to. Second halves of playoff games, we've seen all kinds of things, and Anthony has been great about saying, that's fine, I get it. What do you see as sort of LeBron, Anthony Davis, Andre Drummond, all of that shaking out, George, as they chart this path for the playoffs?
So I think LeBron obviously just puts people in their roles, as Malika talked about. Like, I think Andre Drummond's offensive game, which has been pretty good, will be even better with someone like LeBron. Look, you give LeBron anyone that can roll to the rim, and it's going to be magic, right? Like, there's no doubt. But specifically with Andre Drummond and Anthony Davis, I'm curious to see how LeBron helps them defensively, right? LeBron is certainly going to help. I don't think there's any question about that. But it is small sample size theater here. 83 minutes with AD and AD, and it's a minus 12.6 net rating, okay? A 106 offensive rating, a 119 defensive rating. And I think that we saw this a little last year with Dwight Howard, where there were matchups where he could be played off the floor. But the difference here, Rachel and Malika, is this. Frank Vogel has talked about Andre Drummond being someone that will play starters minutes. This isn't Dwight Howard, who is coming in to play a smaller role. So how does Frank Vogel adjust to that if this defensive struggle continues for them with those two on the floor?
Well, and it's going to be interesting to see how that affects everyone, right? So we're talking about, I love the AD and AD. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna keep that. But it's like, okay, well, then what happens with Gasol, right? He has already expressed maybe a lack of enthusiasm over the current role that he's playing. So all of these dominoes, that's what I'm excited to sort of see shake out. And it hasn't been, right, a disastrous pairing, a disastrous coupling between AD and AD. It's been kind of interesting to see that shake out. But everything gets to be a little bit clearer now that LeBron James is in the mix. They can kind of start looking at, okay, how is this going to look in the playoffs? Because as George mentioned, we know that Anthony Davis took that role over in the playoffs, playing the five a little bit more. Is that going to be replicated where Andre Drummond is going to be playing maybe more of a JaVale McGee type of role? Or, like you said, is he going to continue to be playing some of those starting minutes? So that's sort of what I am excited to see, because right now it's just all possibilities. When LeBron James comes back, that's when you start to see a really clear path of how these Lakers are going to look.
And one of the things things that's so remarkable about LeBron. What he does himself, that would be enough, right? That would be enough to be a superstar in any discussion. But it's the way he activates other players because of the way he can pass, because of the way he sees the floor. So you have to expect a bump from everybody else on that roster once he is out there and in rhythm again. That is certainly what Frank Vogel is hoping for. We will see how quickly it happens if that starts tonight against the Kings. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.